Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome into Crossover Thursday, guys. I'm Louie DiBiase, the host of the Locked On Eagles podcast. He's Marcus Mosher, host of Locked On Cowboys. We thank you for making Locked On Eagles and Locked On Cowboys your first listen each and every day, available on all podcast platforms and YouTube as well. We're getting you ready for Marcus, not really a big matchup between the Eagles and Cowboys this weekend. Normally when these two teams play down the stretch, it's normally with the NFC East on the line or a playoff berth, but both of these teams have their spots clinched, and Dallas has the NFC East clinched.
Yeah, it's not like 2008 or anything like that.
Or 2013, right? 2019.
Thank goodness, by the way. That's great. Cowboys have not fared well at these.
No, they have not.
17, week 18 games before. So, no, this is unique, and it's fun that we're kind of get to watch this game. I don't want to say completely stress free, Louie, but about as stress free as a regular season game can be, right?
Right, for sure. So the Cowboys right now are the 4th seed in the NFC. They have clinched the NFC East. They're 11-5. The Eagles have a wild card spot clinched. Weirdly enough, San Francisco as the 6th seed is not clinched, but the Eagles as the 7 are, both at 9-7. So yeah, Marcus, they both have playoff spots wrapped up. For the Cowboys, like, what are they playing for this weekend? Is there seeding purposes that you're focused on? Maybe there's a matchup you don't want to face in the wild card round?
Yeah, so I mean, technically they can move up in the seeding. They could go all the way up to 2.
Yeah,
but that's only if Tampa Bay and the Rams and the Cardinals all lose. I kind of don't see that happening. Like, it's just
right.
Those guys are going to take care of business, especially the Rams and the Cardinals, because they're fighting still to win that NFC West. So I kind of think this game is more about the Cowboys just trying to get back on track on offense and looking better rather than trying to win and increase their seeding. But at the same time, I mean, that's like, how much do you really want to play some of these guys if you don't absolutely have to? Like,
right.
Tyron Smith just came back from an injury. Do you really need him to go out there and play 70 snaps in a somewhat meaningless game? Probably not. And I think Mike McCarthy knows that. But I'm curious, how do you think Nick Sirianni is going to handle this game?
Well, I think, this team, Marcus, at this point, this will be their 4th game in 19 days. So they're already beat up. It took a lot for them to not run the table, but almost. They won 7 of their last 9 games to find their way in the playoffs after starting 2-5. It took a lot out of them. This team is banged up. They have a large chunk of their core on both sides of the ball right now on the COVID list. There's a lot of incentive for Sirianni to rest their starters this weekend and play the backups. And again, too, honestly, losing is actually going to help them in the playoffs, because if they lose this game, they have a better chance of having their options open with, facing the Los Angeles Rams in the first round, or the Arizona Cardinals, or maybe Dallas. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now are the heavy favorites for the Eagles to play, regardless of if they're the 6 or 7 seed. Most scenarios play out. They're going to face Brady in the first round. But if they lose this game against the Cowboys this weekend, it actually does help them have a better chance of facing the other teams. And although the Buccaneers are pretty banged up, I don't know. I don't want to play Tom Brady in the first round. I'll take my chances with an inconsistent Matt Stafford right now, or an Arizona Cardinals team that hasn't been the same team despite an impressive win against Dallas that they were in the first half of the year. I don't want to face Tampa Bay or Dallas in the first round. So whatever chance they have of facing that NFC West winner, that's what I want.
Yeah, and for the Cowboys, I mean, they don't really get to decide. It's not up to them. When they lost to the Cardinals last week, they kind of lost control of their own destiny. So they're going to face whoever doesn't win the NFC West. And my gut tells me that they would like to play the Cardinals again. I think they believe that they play like a C+ game, and that if they play them again, they could win. The Rams are, I think, the team they want to avoid, because Matt Stafford's played really well in Dallas before. Aaron Donald is a nightmare matchup for them. And then they've got Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham. So I bet you secretly the Cowboys are kind of hoping that the Rams steal that division so they can get another chance at the Cardinals. But we'll see. Kyler Murray has dominated in Dallas before. So I want to talk about just kind of how the seasons have gone for the Cowboys and the Eagles. But we should take a quick break and tell you guys about BetOnline, where you could bet on this game. I believe the last time I checked, the Eagles were a slight home favorite.
It looked like it, yeah.
I listen. I love betting on football. I would highly recommend staying away from this game.
I would too.
Yeah, there's no good in betting on games where both teams might be resting their quarterbacks in the second half. So, BetOnline would like to wish you a happy betting new year as we continue to march to the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the #1 spot for all of your sports wagering action for 2022. It's a new year and a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. All you have to do is use promo code LOCKEDON to get started. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, let's talk about the Eagles season because at 2-5, it felt like this team was probably going to have a top 10 pick, maybe even a top 5 pick. You were wondering, are they going to mortgage the future for a quarterback? And then all of a sudden, they clinch a playoff spot before we even get to week 18. So how has the season gone for the Eagles?
Yeah, it's been definitely the tale of two halves. A 2-5 team that, like you said, seemed dead in the water after that loss to the Raiders in Las Vegas. They had no identity. They threw the football way too much. They had a second-year quarterback that was in over his head. It felt like the same thing for their first-year head coach. And like you said, it seemed like people started to crack out the mock draft machines, started to look at this 2022 quarterback class, talking myself into Malik Willis or Desmond Ridder.
How often were you looking at Tankathon just to see where they
all the time, man. I mean, Matt Corral, I was more excited at that point of the year for that Ole Miss Liberty game because I was so interested in the quarterback prospects. And while still I'm not 100% sold on Jalen Hurts, the way Hurts, Sirianni, and this team have turned things around. And like I said earlier, they've won now 7 of their last 9 games, 7-2 down the stretch to get to 9-7 and clinch a playoff spot. Just a testament to how good this team is continuously now, even in a new era at overcoming adversity and running the table. They've done this now for 3 of the 4 years I've done Locked on Eagles, 2018, 2019, 2021. These veterans are battle tested. The young core is very mature, like Jalen Hurts, that they fit in perfectly with this team. And Sirianni did a total 180. I mean, Marcus, there's a lot of coaches that stick to their philosophy. It's their way or the highway, and they won't adjust and they'll go down with their beliefs. Sirianni, it was the opposite. I mean, he wanted to throw the football, but once he realized this team can't do that at a high level, volume-wise and efficiency, we saw it against the Dallas Cowboys earlier in the year. They had to switch things up. They ran behind the strength of their team, which is the offensive line, Jalen Hurts' legs, and these running backs, and it turned into this team being a top offense in football, and they've won more games in the second half of the year than anybody but Kansas City. So there's not a lot of teams that completely change who they are night and day at the midway point, but Philadelphia did it, and that's why they're playing deep into January.
We're going to continue to talk about the Eagles, but I want to ask you, since you have done some draft work, did you have a quarterback that you liked?
I am all in on Malik Willis still. And
okay.
I'm a high ceiling guy to a fault. Even if the floor is a lot lower, I'm going to take the risk. And yeah, am I going to get a Paxton Lynch every so often? 100%. But at the same time, I've also loved the likes of Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen over Josh Rosen. So for me, I just see the way Malik Willis can just change gears, not to Lamar Jackson's level, but a poor man's Lamar and just the arm strength. I love that kind of prospect. And for me, in a class that's already, there's a lot of risk to it and not a lot of safe bets. To me, I'm going to go with the most upside. So I've got my eyes on Willis and Corral for sure right now. And the Eagles could take one, but right now, I mean, all their picks are now in the late teens, early 20s, because the Miami Dolphins pick they have, it once was second overall at 1-7. They've run the table and won 7 of their last 8. So that's a low pick, and the Colts as well. So I think quarterback for now, unless there's a trade for a star veteran, it's probably out of the question. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be the guy next year.
Admittedly, I haven't completely, looked at all these guys yet, but I'm kind of a Kenny Pickett fan. There's just, listen, I get the some of the limits that he might have, but if there's one guy in this class I had to bet on to be like, hey, that guy's starting and being, he's a top 15 quarterback 5 years from now, it's probably Pickett.
I think he's probably the safest player, and he does. I forget who made the comparison, but somebody said he's like a safer Johnny Manziel, just with like his play style. And it is kind of interesting. I like Pickett more than some prospects. I would put him ahead of Desmond Ridder and probably Carson Strong. It's an interesting class. I mean, I think
it feels like the poor man's version of like Joe Burrow, right?
It's just hard for me to like say, I don't want to, a lot of people are comparing it to like the 2013 quarterback class.
No,
it's very hard for me to do that because I did that with the 2017 class and then out comes Patrick Mahomes. So you just really never know.
You never know. All right, let's get back to the Eagles.
Yeah. If
they are going to make a run in these playoffs, how are they going to do it?
I think it's going to be continuously doing what they do best, and that is running behind Lane Johnson, Jason Kelce, Jordan Mailata, and Landon Dickerson in this offensive line. I mean, that's what won them a Super Bowl 5 years ago. That's how they've been consistent throughout pretty much the entire 21st century has been trench play, and I think that's the strength of this team again. Hopefully Jalen Hurts' ankle heals up, and they can kind of get back to that dynamic running threat that he is. He's had to rely more on his arm the last few weeks, but yeah, I think that's the way they got to do it is continue to run the football and then be opportunistic and efficient when you do have to throw. I'm just, Marcus, the big question is, that's the way they win football games, but the way the other teams win football games that they're probably going to play in the playoffs, Dallas, Arizona, LA, Green Bay, maybe even, those teams can throw the football at will with star quarterbacks and a lot of weapons. And so if those teams like the Cowboys did on Monday night earlier this year, if they're on fire and your defense, the Eagles defense can't stop them, can Jalen Hurts throw 30 to 40 times and keep you in the ball game? That's going to be an interesting question that I think making the playoffs is going to help you take a look at.
All right, so this is admittedly my Cowboys bias here, but tell me if I'm wrong. I just kind of get the sense from the outside looking in that Philly is really excited to make the playoffs, but there's probably an expectation that this team isn't going to make a run. Like they're in a tough spot here because the NFC is so top heavy right now. But it is a sign that, in year one of the rebuild, we're already making the playoffs. So, hey, it's basically like house money, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, that's actually what my co-host Gino Camilleri said on the show when the Eagles did clinch over the weekend. The excitement level is there. It's just for different reasons. Like you said, it's like great to have, a first-time starting quarterback and a first-time head coach get in together, especially the way they did it. Again, starting 2-5 and running the table. It's such a huge step and a foundation piece, a building block for the future, for the long-term success. But yeah, this doesn't feel like 2017 or heck, even 2018 and 2019, when those teams kind of limped into the playoffs, you still had expectations because there was a lot of that core still from the Super Bowl roster. Whereas this year, some of those pieces are still there, but, they don't match up well against Tampa Bay or Dallas or Los Angeles or Arizona. So, yeah, I don't think people are expecting a playoff win. But if they did it, would people be surprised? No, because the Eagles for 4 of the last 5 years have kind of shocked the world a lot when they're counted out. I wouldn't bet my money on it for sure, but I think it's definitely not out of the realm of possibilities.
And we talked about this on the Wednesday episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Like for Dallas, like the expectation going into the season was to make the playoffs. So losing in the first round, I think a lot of people will consider that a disappointing season, right?
Yeah.
I think things are just a little bit different for Philadelphia because they are in a different space, right? Like they had more dead cap money than any team in the NFL.
Right.
And a lot of people thought they were going to be.
Most didn't think they were going to be here.
Yeah. Most people thought they were probably going to be closer to a top 5 pick than being in the playoffs. Right. So I think Philadelphia, they are exactly, they're ahead of where a lot of people expected them to be. So we should continue to talk about some of the Dallas Cowboys stuff, right? We talk about some of the expectation for them.
Yeah.
But before we do that, let's take one more quick break. So tell you guys about Get Upside. I got to tell you, I use Get Upside every single time I fill up my tank because you're making 25 cents per gallon on every single gallon of gas every single time you fill up. All you have to do is just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and use promo code Touchdown and get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. You can cash out anytime with your bank account, PayPal, or e-gift card. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code Touchdown and get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. That is promo code touchdown.
This is Crossover Thursday. I'm Louie DiBiase of Locked On Eagles. He's Marcus Mosher of Locked On Cowboys. I don't know if I said Locked On Cowboys for myself. I'm Locked On Eagles. And we're getting into
You're welcome
this matchup.
anytime on Locked On Cowboys.
My listeners would not be a fan of that. But what they are a fan of is the Eagles clinching their way into the NFC playoffs. In 2021, the Dallas Cowboys have the NFC East clinched up, Marcus. Right now at 11-5, they're the 4 seed. We kind of got into in segment 2, the Eagles, and have they met expectations for this year? What do you think of the Cowboys? I mean, they've won the division. They have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, as they tend to. But at the same time, there's been some hiccups this year. Like, where is your head at with the Cowboys heading into the postseason? Are you as confident as you were at any point this year?
All right, so big picture view. The Cowboys are exactly where they should be, right? They're second in point differential this year. They're like first in turnover differential. They won the NFC East, which is always the goal every single year, to make the playoffs. And for the most part, they're playing well. They've got the number 1 ranked offense in the league. However, something about that Cardinals game just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And it's not because – maybe it's because – they lost to the Chiefs a month ago, and that was a big game. They lost to the Broncos. They lost to the Bucs. And, you could make an argument they've lost to a lot of teams that are going to be in the playoffs. So are they just a team that beats up on bad teams and struggles against good teams, or are those just type of games that they just happen to lose? They're coin flip games. I kind of think that's more it. That, listen, when you play a good team like the Cardinals or the Bucs or the Chiefs, you're going to lose every once in a while, but the football is a weird shape, man. And it bounces in mysterious ways. I still think the Cowboys are really good. Does that mean that they're going to make the NFC, championship game or go to the Super Bowl? Probably not, but I still feel like this is a good team, regardless of what the outcome is over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, so it's interesting. We were talking about the Eagles and how they were kind of playing with house money this year, making the postseason. For the Dallas Cowboys, it's kind of different, right? They're still on that timeline the Eagles were before, from 2016 to 2020, where making the playoffs, just getting in at this point, winning the division, is almost an expectation.
Exactly.
It's not really a surprise. There isn't really a huge amount of excitement with that. Like you said, now it's about beating the great teams, because now championship aspirations are there. When it comes to like Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, and these Cowboys runs from that timeline I laid out, like 2016 to now, are these the heaviest expectations the Cowboys have had heading into a season and heading into the playoffs, where it's maybe championship or bust? Like, would them getting to the NFC title be enough for fans?
It's a really good question. In 2016, I think the expectation was just don't suck, because Tony Romo was out for the year, and Dak led them to the number 1 seed, which is way above what they should have been. And the expectations got too high, right? Rookie quarterbacks typically don't go very far in the playoffs, and they got knocked out in the second round. It happens. 2018, still weren't sure what kind of team that was. They started off the season 3-5. They traded for Amari Cooper. They went on a run. They won a playoff game, and they lost to the Rams in Los Angeles. I still define that as a successful season. This year, I feel like making the playoffs is the expectation, as you mentioned. I do think the expectations here are higher than they have ever been before, because you've got a franchise quarterback under contract. You've got a defense that finally can get some stops and can get some turnovers. You've got 2 outstanding receivers in Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. You had Michael Gallup before last week. I think Cowboy fans want to see them win at least a playoff game, if not multiple playoff games. If they get knocked out in round 1, it's going to be looked at as a big disappointing season for Dallas.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, Marcus, like, normally with Dallas, a lot of the times, just because of the amount of hype they get, the amount of media attention, sometimes those teams, I don't know, expectations maybe are set a little bit too high. But this year, it does feel real. I mean, even though they've lost a lot of these games against good teams, like they were in it from the jump against Tampa Bay, Arizona, Kansas City. They've beaten some good teams this year as well. And like you mentioned, I mean, they've got pieces. They have stars everywhere now on both sides of the football. I mean, before Michael Gallup, you had maybe, a top 3 wide receiver trio in the league, a star quarterback, a great running back duo. I mean, Micah Parsons. The Eagles love Devontae Smith, but a lot of people are talking about that pick. Like, did they mess up, not taking an all around, maybe the best defensive player in football? So yeah, it does feel like the expectations this year at least like they're there, and I feel like they're more justified.
Yeah, and I think it's all kind of relative too. Like if they have to go to Green Bay and play the Packers in round 2, if that game is close and they lose, I don't think people are going to kill them. If they get killed by the Cardinals or the Rams in round 1 of the playoffs, that's when we're going to see a lot of criticism. And frankly, it's going to be deserved, right? Like you can't lose another home playoff game. I don't know if they're Super Bowl, actually favorites or anything like that, but they should go deep in the playoffs. And I kind of expect them to at least win a playoff game this year, Louie.
Who's the team you're looking to avoid the most?
Green Bay. Because of
I think that's most teams.
all the demons. But listen, we've talked about this all year long on the Locked On Cowboy podcast. If you want to be considered an elite team, a Super Bowl contending team, you can't be afraid of Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady anymore. I know those guys are special players,
right?
But you've got to go beat them, and you can't just try to look for the easiest path possible to go to the Super Bowl. More than likely, you're going to have to go to Lambeau and beat Aaron Rodgers, and we know they haven't been able to do that before. But frankly, I kind of want them to go there because I want to see how they stack up. I want to see how they measure up against those teams. Because if they do win that game, Louie, now we're talking, right? Now we're talking about, hey, they have a legit shot to run the table. Trying to avoid them is I don't think the answer.
It's going to be fascinating. Both these teams in the playoffs for the first time together since 2018. And Marcus, again, like we said, they do not have a big game at the end of the year for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, normally we would be like really looking at this game, looking at the matchups, looking at who, the weather and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't matter, right? And like all we care about is get out of this game healthy, right? That's literally all we care about.
Do you think how long, like last question here, starters, like how long do you think they play? Are they going to play?
I would say it's probably dependent on the starter, right? Like
Tyron
Smith, my guess, and Zach Martin, my guess is they play a quarter, maybe 2 quarters, and then they pull them. I think they want those guys to have a normal work week, a normal, warm up and all that kind of stuff. And then once they play a little bit, that's when you pull them back. I just think it's a bad idea to completely sit guys and say, hey, we're going to be off the next 15 game days. Be ready for that intensity against the Cardinals. I kind of think we're going to see them a quarter and a half. Some of the younger guys might play the entire game. But Dak, those guys, I don't expect them to finish.
Enjoy the game this weekend, guys. You can find more of Locked On Eagles and Locked On Cowboys on all podcast platforms and on YouTube as well. I'm Louie DiBiase of Locked On Eagles. You can follow me on Twitter at DiBiase LOE. And Marcus, they can follow you on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher.